Hi, my name is Vass, and today I want to talk to you guys about my research into the relationship between positive affect following exercise and the intensity of physical activity one is participating in. By positive affect, I mean any way of quantifying positive emotion. So, only 1 in every 5 Americans reach federal physical activity guidelines, according to the CDC. This is 30 minutes of exercise a day for 3 days of the week. It's not super hard to reach this guideline, and as a result, it's a little disheartening that such a low proportion of Americans aren't are doing so. So first, I hypothesized that this lack of exercise was due to a lack of intrinsic motivation, or people weren't feeling happy following exercise and as such unincentivized to continue doing so. This is supported by SAM in 2003 that found that people who tend to participate in more physical activity than sedentary behavior also tend to be happier following physical activity. So what this suggested to me was that people exercise because it makes them happy. So the next question became, how do we make people happy after the exercise? And at first, I thought it was probably something to do with what type of exercise we have them on. And Bill and Mary tested different programs on different Americans and found that no program significantly increased positive affect in individuals following exercise when compared to another program. So what this suggests to me that, okay, so it's partly something to do with intensity or like program of exercise, but it's also something to do with individual reactions. Zhang and Chen found that long-term markers of positive affect tend to increase in the long term. So once you develop a habit, most people tend to be happy following exercise. But my problem was that I didn't know about the short term, and I wanted to first develop this habit. So obviously they need to be happy in the short term. So how I wanted to do this then was to study the short-term effective responses to different forms of exercise. And because it's, as Biddle and Mary showed, that the reaction is probably something to do with individual qualities, I wanted to control for as many variables as I could so I could get a better gauge of the relationship between the type of exercise we're doing and our change in positive affect. My hypotheses were that physical activity would increase positive affect in participants, and my second hypothesis was that increases in intensity would correlate to greater differences in positive affect. I studied 96 sample points from a local park. They were a wide range of ages, athleticism, different hours of sleep, and different recently in mills. These are the control variables I'm using to better study this relationship. My independent variable was intensity of exercise. I was following in Biddle and Mary here, changing the program. I was going from 150%, 160%, and 175%. And my dependent variable was the change in positive affect. I measured this using a self-reported survey called a PANIS, or a positive and negative affect scale. And basically, you record how you feel from a scale of 1 to 5 on 20 different emotions. And then we add up the score of your positive emotions to get some baseline positive affect score. So I would first have people fill out a PANIS and a form that listed down these control variables like gender, how often they exercise weekly, their most recently eaten meal, and how much sleep they'd gotten the night before. They then exercised at one of those 3 intensity conditions for 15 minutes and then filled out another PANIS. And then the whole point, the dependent variable, was the change in the post-exercise PANIS positive affect score and the pre-exercise positive affect score. So to better understand this relationship, I both tested this relationship without controls and with controls. Without controls, I found that participants reported increases in positive affect at all intensities. So on the y-axis here is the positive increase in positive affect, and as you can see here, it tended to increase at any intensity. And there also seemed to be a positive correlation between intensity and positive affect as we went up in intensity. However, when I added controls, it turned out that this was not the case, and that there was actually a negative coefficient between positive affect and intensity, suggesting that as intensity went up, positive affect went down. So in this way, my second hypothesis was was partially supported. So my major findings then were that my first hypothesis was accepted. Physical activity increased positive affect for every participant in the short term. And my second hypothesis was partly supported in that increases in intensity increased positive affect without controls, but with controls they did not. What this suggests is that people who don't exercise will report positive affect following exercise. However, beginners should probably not start off at a high intensity when they want to start developing a habit of exercise, because they won't report higher levels of positive affect. what this suggests then is that we need to cater specific programs for specific individuals so that they better respond to exercise. If we don't, then they may not develop it as a habit and we'll continue to see these low rates of exercise. So, kind of where I want to go from here is I want to figure out what control variable explains the difference between the results. Because if I can figure out the control variable that is responsible for this difference, then I can isolate it. And that may be what's responsible for differing reactions between individuals in terms of exercise. That's probably the most important step of future research. So, in conclusion, what I found was that as we up intensity without controls, positive affect tends to increase. However, when we control for individual factors, intensity and positive affect actually correlate negatively, suggesting that beginners or people who have not yet built up a habit of exercise should start off at lower intensities to better develop positive affect and a habit of healthy, sustainable exercise.